Okay, in setting up inside micrometers, you have to start with a number. And if I can find the ink pen, I'm just going to come up with an arbitrary number of 1.1 623 inches. So if you have a metric number, all you have to do is convert it to here. If all your equipment is standard, if you have a metric print and all your if you have a print that's in American Standard and all you have is metric equipment, all you again have to use is a calculator, convert it to metric, and use that. I'm going over a set in standard inches. Now the first thing to do on these sets is to have a set of gauge blocks. Grade B will work just fine. And I got other problems right now because I didn't put all my blocks up. Okay, first of all, I need that 3/10, so I'm going to come up here and grab a block gauge that is 100, and that's 1.003. Yeah, it has 2 zeros on it, and there's my 3/10. Then I need my 62. We can break that up into a 150 and a let's see here, that's going to be a 112. There's a 0.112, if I can find the number on it. And I am not seeing the number on it anywhere. I need more light. There it is. 0.112. And to get the 50, I have to have a 150. And let's see here, where did it disappear to? 150. And this one here is a 150. So I'm throwing those things together. So that will be a 0.3623. I'm putting a 0.150, a 0.112, and a 0.1003 together, and this is how you put your gauge blocks together. So I got my 3, my 2, my 5 and 1 is 6, and that's a 3. And here I want 1. So to get that, I need to not add an inch to it. I'm going to put that away, and I'm going to get a 0.8. I probably could have used a 9.5 and come up with the same thing, but in theory this right here should come up to that number. Now this is a set of Harbor Freight. Again, it's digit on the outside because I'm extremely dyslexic, and people that are not hate this type on a general basis. And people that are will swear by it, like myself, will swear by them quite often. Okay, so we get, these things are reading 1.163. Now normally you come up to a set of micrometers and you just bring this up so you get 1 inch because it's a 1 to 2 micrometers. Then it's a 100 thousandths plus 2 notches. Each one of them is 25 thousandths, so that's 50. 10 is 60. 1, 2. Actually, it goes 1. Yeah, it goes 1, 2, and 3. So what happens is I got to come back to this, and it looks like I'm about 3/10 shy according to the reading of these micrometers. Like I say, these micrometers are China specials. Don't consider them to be of any kind of accuracy. Okay, lock it down. And what they do is they break it down into 5/10. And if you see here, every 2 marks is a 1/10. So we're doing vernier again. There's my 2, so I am 3/10 shy of that 163. But that's according to this micrometer. This is the reason why we use block gauges rather than micrometers when you want that extra bit of accuracy. So I take these block gauges, I set them aside. I keep them in place because somebody else might say, hey, your numbers are off. They come in with their own set of micrometers. They set it to that number. They pull it off and say, here. And then you bring these block gauges out and you say, check your micrometers. Block gauges, so long as they stick together, then they trump micrometers at all times. And anything other than that, you might want to check your block gauges. I have seen some block gauges that were out an entire 3/1000ths of an inch, and the shop was still using them as though they were good gauges. I kid you not. So now I've got my standard to set this up with, and I need this, and for putting this in, I like to go sideways. Some people like to go up and down. So may as well go up and down. So you push it in until your needle goes almost to the top. And then you lock this in. And I do not know what happened here. It looks like somebody dropped them. This is what happens when you take your stuff into a machine shop or somebody else's machine shop. It's been so long since I've used these things. Okay. I remember why I want to go sideways with this thing, because that's the way I like to set it up. Okay, so I disengage it. I bring it down until the needle just starts going up. I like to put it at the top myself. That's just a personal preference. And now I need to find these things to match properly. My little wrench that fell off here. And if you're a machinist, you should be able to make a new one of these if you lose it. So nobody's really going to worry about you if you lose stuff. And that includes these also, the spacers. So here's your first point. Here's your second point coming off of there. And these are your point tips. I'm going 1.1. And I believe I start under and go up. In fact, if I have it the idea correct, I need both those spacers that I just set down. Grab my wrench, tighten it up, or I should say snug it down. Now on this, let's see here if I'm far enough out. I will be shortly. I need enough space so that this is flat and stationary. And I didn't just do that. I did. I disconnected it, so it's an old habit. I bring micrometers over, and I have some fairly good micrometers in my toolbox in my office. I'm trying to set this gauge here to these micrometers. And you do that by Okay, so I'm within range. This is your small gauge. That is 10 thousandths. And each one of these numbers is a thousandths. Each one of the lines in between is a tenth. And this Michitoyo is good enough to give you 50 millionths just dead on every single time. It has that much repeatability. Unless it's been dropped and damaged, but so I'm bringing that 0 over. So what you're doing is you're going back and forth this direction, and once you get it to the highest point there, then you go up and down until you get it to the highest point, then you go back and forth again, and then you move your 0. And you just keep doing that. And I'm going to stick my head in the way. Or somewhere around there. Okay, I can't get it any higher than that, and that's what this is you have two axes to move this thing around in, and you use both of them to get it just as high as you can get it. You lock it down. This here is your lock, and it locks this ring in place so that it doesn't turn. The idea is to go up and down, back and forth, up and down again until you get that sucker back onto that 0. So right there I have just set one of these gauges to that size specification right there. Any questions? There's a comment section down below on these, and there's other types of gauges also, but we are dealing with micrometers at the moment. And to put this down back in the box, I have to break it down. So as soon as I release this, it's all over with. But before I do, I'm going to unlock this and go backwards with it. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to put it back in. I thought I was. .62. Okay, when you do this, another thing you have to remember is that this is a double dial gauge. Your first dial is here, your second one is here. So you have to remember where you were here before you remember where you were on this big round one. Because that little dial tells you how many times you went around. And if I remembered right, it was between the 2 and 3. Okay, I play around with it, get as high as I can, bring it back down to 0. Get it as high as I can, bring it back down to 0. Thereabout. I think you can see it. I think you can see both of them. I'm not 100% sure. Let's see here if I can get it again. Right there. So I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to lock my micrometers. Nope, I didn't lock them. I'm going to guess that that is, oops, definitely went over. If you're over, you know you're over. If you're under, you're just probably not moving your micrometers in the right direction. Okay, let's lock it in there. And on the micrometers, I got 1.16, and it's between the 2 and the 3. Again, these are China specials, and this digit on the indicator, it's real iffy. It says, this right here tells me I'm in the ballpark of a thousandths. You don't know how many times thousands and thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars of parts have gone up to an inspection room, and there will be 25 thousandths out or 10 thousandths out. So reading this off, it's a 1 to 2. So I got 1 inch right off the bat. I come over here, I read this off, I got 100 thousandths here. So I know I got at least 1.1. Now for my next digit, I've got 2 spaces here, and I'm just slightly over my third one, so that's 50 plus 10, which is 60. Then I add 1, 2, so that's 62. And now I go to my tenths, and I'm almost at a half a tenth. So I come over here to my vernier, and I'm looking at 4 tenths. So I got 1.1624. So normally when you recheck them, you want to recheck them with a separate set of micrometers, and you really want to check them with the best set of micrometers you have in the shop. So when I freehand them with the micrometers, I get 1/10 bigger than what this thing is calling for. It's usually better to be slightly bigger than smaller, but then again, depending on your application, sometimes the company will say, hey, this isn't right, I need them redone. It's easier to take metal back out. If you're doing it in tenths, you put it on a lathe, you take yourself a piece of sandpaper, you turn the part, and you put that sandpaper up against it, and it'll take that tenth right off. Or some red Scotch-Brite or gray Scotch-Brite, depending on if they're wanting a tenth taken off, or 20 millionths or 10 millionths. And that pretty much ends this one.